Welcome. We are starting our tour off at Fort Pulaski. Fort Pulaski was built between 1829 and 1847 and named for Polish nobleman and military commander Casimer Pulaski, who lost his life at the siege of Savannah in 1779. After the War of Independence, President Thomas Jefferson had a series of coastal forts built to protect the United States from foreign invasion. Cockspur Island, near the mouth of the Savannah River, was selected as the site for Fort Pulaski to block enemy access to the upriver city of Savannah. A labor force of skilled workers, both free and slave, constructed the fort over a period of 18 years. Approximately 25 million bricks were used. It was considered one of America's most invincible forts, with its 7.5-foot thick walls. It wasn't until 1861 that it became a Confederate post, when Georgia joined South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi when forming the Confederate States. In 1924, it was declared a national monument, and today it stands as one of the nation's best preserved historic national defenses. Period furnishings can be found throughout many of the rooms in the fort, like lanterns, chests, cast iron frying pans, and quilts. Careful, don't touch anything. Fort Pulaski only saw one battle in its history, and it only lasted for 2 days. During the American Civil War, General Sherman ordered the bombardment of the fort by sea. The Union Army's new technology of the powerful rifle cannon rendered Fort Pulaski obsolete. These great walls were breached. Realizing that if the powder magazine was struck, it would explode, destroying the fort and causing great casualty, the Confederate troops surrendered on the next day, April 11, 1862, and the fort was then occupied by the Union Army. Watch your step. After 1862, the fort was used as a political and military prison. Then, Fort Pulaski became a destination on the Underground Railroad for slaves searching for freedom. It was here that Union General David Hunter issued an order freeing local slaves, predating President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. On the day that I visited the fort, the tunnels leading to the underground powder magazines were closed off to visitors. Perhaps they were afraid that someone would fire up a cigarette. The 7-foot deep moat surrounding Fort Pulaski is inhabited by a variety of small marine life, and on a rare occasion you might see an alligator. Adjacent to Fort Pulaski are several short, easy trails. The North Pier Trail takes you past Battery Hambright and the Savannah River just beyond. In 1885, President Grover Cleveland ordered the construction of new coastal defenses, but this time made of concrete and steel. Battery Hambright was designed to hold 2 rifle cannons, and in March of 1900 the battery was completed. However, the guns were never mounted, and the battery never saw any military action. Battery Hambright remains in good condition and offers visitors to Fort Pulaski the opportunity to see how military engineers adapted to technological changes after the Civil War. Interestingly enough, the battery sits on a foundation of 30,000 bricks, which were taken from the remains of a section of Fort Pulaski which had been destroyed in a 1881 hurricane. Walking now toward the North Pier, where you can watch cargo ships heading to and from the port of Savannah, 18 miles upriver. If you prefer watching wildlife, there's plenty of that. Bird watchers can see egrets and heron and possibly bald eagles and storks. In the mud along the marsh, you can see fiddler crabs and the tracks of bobcats. Now, take the Lighthouse Overlook Trail to see the 1849 Cockspur Island Lighthouse. It survived unscathed during the 2-day attack at Fort Pulaski, but the beacon was extinguished in 1909 and abandoned by the Coast Guard in 1949. And due to preservation efforts, the lighthouse is closed to the public. But the view is here for all to enjoy. Welcome to Old Fort Jackson. Fort James Jackson. Named for a popular British-born governor of Georgia who migrated to Savannah at age 15 in 1772, Old Fort Jackson, as it's informally known, was built in 1808 as part of President Thomas Jefferson's Coastal Defense Initiative. It's the oldest standing fort in the state of Georgia, and prior to its construction, a small earthen fort stood here. When the War of 1812 was declared with Great Britain, 8 cannons were mounted at Fort Jackson. To prepare for action, a furnace was added where cannonballs could be heated red hot so they could set attacking ships afire. But Fort Jackson was never attacked by the British. In 1861, when Georgia succeeded and joined the Confederate States, Fort Jackson once again became an important military post, along with the newer, bigger, and stronger Fort Pulaski. Fort Jackson saw some action during the Civil War. In 1862, the fort took its first attack by a Union ship captained by escaped slave Robert Smalls, who commandeered a Confederate ship in Charleston, South Carolina, and sailed it into the hands of the Union Navy. How you like them apples? After the fall of Fort Pulaski, Fort Jackson became the headquarters for Savannah's river defenses. It held up well against maritime attacks, but land-based armies proved too much to defend against. This must be the recreation room. While Fort Jackson helped Savannah hold off Union ships, General Sherman was making his famous March to the Sea. Having burned Atlanta to the ground, citizens and political leaders of Savannah met Sherman on the outskirts of town and surrendered, begging him to spare their beautiful city. Savannah was taken December 10, 1864, and the Stars and Stripes were raised again over Fort Jackson. U.S. soldiers returned to the deserted fort. The last American soldiers to be stationed at Fort Jackson were members of the 55th Massachusetts, an African American unit of the Federal Army. In 1905, the U.S. War Department abandoned the fort, and it was purchased by the city of Savannah. Today, this early 19th century brick fortification is celebrated for its excellent condition in which it remains. The historic site now referred to as Old Fort Jackson.
Gun number 1, ready! Fire!